All right. You're live. Ready, Chase?
I am.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Welcome to another edition of Smart with Your Money Live. We are back. Today we're going to go over financial considerations for caregivers. Let me hit the record button. All right. Well, I think we're going. My name is Felipe, Community Outreach Coordinator at Debt Wave Credit Counseling, the San Diego Financial Literacy Center. Also on here, Chase Peck, I'm the Director of Community Outreach at both. And today we're going to go over, Chase, one of the, not the most fun topic, I realize that, but definitely an important one that affects so many people. According to the Mayo Clinic, about 1 in 3 adults in the United States provides care for another adult or person as an informal caregiver. It's more prevalent than most people would imagine. So, hopefully we can shed some light on some of these topics.
Phil, it's great to be here again. And I love the intro. I like the fact that you pulled out the intro and I get to kind of play support system. So it's kind of fun. Technically I'm a caregiver. When my wife got diagnosed with cancer and going through the treatments and all those kinds of things, I all of a sudden was thrust into that. Now, I am her husband. So I would like to think that we are each other's caregivers forever, and I don't have to. She takes care of herself and does a lot. It's not under. I'm not like the caregiver that we would look at as we're going to talk about today, but from an emotional standpoint, you are that, and technically, I
think by definition.
Yeah, by definition, I am. So, when I went through, watched my father go through the situation with my mom, and when she was going through her illness and as she was finally passed away, the stresses and the financial implications that can be put on a family is it's a real thing, and it can be emotionally and financially draining.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, some people just may not even realize that technically they fall under the umbrella of being a caregiver. So it's important to kind of make that distinction and to know that it's okay to be considered a caregiver. And if, we'll go over some of the things, but just to kind of be aware that more people than what you imagine can find themselves at some point being a caregiver. And it varies, from like yourself, you mentioned she does all her own things, but you do provide some, whether it's moral support or just extra rounds of picking up kids or driving places,
driving to treatments.
That qualifies. But to the same, to the extremes where people are like full-time having to care for someone. So there's a wide range here that we're talking about.
Most of the time when people think of caregivers, they think of seniors, maybe their parents or their grandparents.
Correct. So first step, if you have the opportunity to be proactive, this isn't always the case, but if you do have the opportunity to be proactive, start early, have a conversation, have a plan in place. And if you're already the caregiver and if that person can, hopefully still hold a conversation with you and be part of the plan, sit down and talk. What is the plan? What are, I know it's not a swim live or anything we do without saying the word plan. I know, but it's important. It is, financial and otherwise. Yes. Have a conversation and have a plan on what the steps are, or at least you can't always plan it all, but you can at least try and plan for some of it. So,
well, and that's a conversation you should have with your parents, or if you're in that situation with your kids or somebody that's close to you, friends, whatever it might be. What is the plan if something happens? And that, that goes for your affairs, right? We've talked about that. We've done a swim live on what you should be preparing and all those kinds of things. To God forbid you get in a major accident and you can't take care of yourself anymore. Those things can happen, and it's better to be ready for somebody to take action than everybody looking at each other going, what do we do?
Right. Speaking of ones we've already done, review and or create estate planning documents. We've done a whole presentation on it, so it can hold its own. This one slide you'll notice that with a few of the slides today, where it's like that could be its own presentation. So it has been. And here's the QR code for it, but we're talking wills, trusts, powers of attorney, beneficiary designations, advanced healthcare directives, all those guardianship designations. It's a long list, and it's not all stuff you could do on your own. But we have done a whole swim live on it. So here's the QR code. When you're done watching this one, shoot over there and watch that one. But it just having documents in place, having them ready to go is going to make so much of this financial and otherwise. You're gonna hear me say that a lot today, financial and otherwise, because there's so much more to it than just the finances in this case. It's just gonna make a lot of things move smoother through the process and have a just better idea of how it's all going to work if it's all there in writing, both for the individuals and even from a legal perspective, so that you don't find yourself in the courts battling all that different things. So Chase and see okay. Let me switch up my sharing screen here and see how this can. Let's try.
Just a little bit of a technical
difficulty here.
Difficulty.
How about now?
Looking beautiful.
There we go.
Here we go. I mean, we didn't want people to know what's coming next.
You're gonna steal my thunder, and then I won't have any jokes or anything. Darn computer updates. I blame you, IT. So have those plans set up. Seek professional advice. You weren't surprised. You knew this one was coming. But have it have it be something where you can talk to a professional, and you may have to talk to multiple professionals, CPAs, lawyers, healthcare professionals. It might be a full team of pros, but talking to the financial professional or the other professionals that are in that field that specialize in it can kind of give you some breathing room, and you don't have to sit there and wonder, am I doing it right? I don't have no clue what's going on. So look for professional advice.
First things first, find a legitimate, somebody that can refer a great CFP to you, a certified financial planner. And that's a good start as far as what the things you're going to need towards retirement. And which this all comes into play. Yeah.
But sometimes it's not retirement. It could sneak up on people. It could be much long before that, or sometimes it's even parents whose adult children have some kind of disability that they need to be taken care of.
Got to plan for that.
So you got to plan for all that, and you got to have a team of experts to help you sometimes.
Sure.
So you're the caretaker. One of the big expenses, with anyone, caretaker or otherwise, is medical. So find out the person you're caring for, the loved one, do they have medical insurance? Is it, if they do have medical insurance, what does it cover? What kind of medical insurance? Is that going to be a permanent thing? Do they pay for it? Was it a work attached thing that they may not have anymore? All the different things. Are there public benefits, government programs? There's just a lot that can go into play with medical insurance. So that might be a good starting point right there. Find out what medical coverage the person you're caring for has, and then, what expenses may or may not be covered, because not having the adequate medical insurance for a situation, it often can lead to, big financial problems.
Yes.
That could just ruin a financial situation. So find out what the medical insurance situation is for the individual that you're caring for. Do they have Medicare? Maybe this person who you're assisting, doesn't have medical insurance, but they qualify for Medicare or any similar government program. That may be like state versions of it, Medi-Cal or whatever. But medical insurance, if they're over 65, then they qualify for Medicare. That may take, some of the expenses. It can be used jointly with, this could be a whole presentation on its own. I'm not
Yes.
saying it
probably
isn't
will
going
be.
to be in the future. So, spoiler alert number 2 for you today. We'll be coming up with a whole new list of swim lives, and I don't know, I'd have to say this is probably going to be on there. Because we can't possibly cover it in one slide, but if your loved one's over 65, they qualify. There's like part A, part B. It's
There's
very
hospitalization, right? Medical expenses.
and there's different coverages. So do they have Medicare? If so, or
Look into
if
what
they don't
they have.
and they're eligible, how do you get it? A lot to dig in here. So stay tuned for the new swim live topics. I'm sure you'll see this one on there. Do they have disability insurance, especially if it's something that happened kind of suddenly? Do they have short-term disability? Do they have long-term disability? And this can be a big financial help if the individual does have the disability insurance, because they may be used to a certain income. That income may no longer be there, but short-term, long-term disability may kick in to kind of make up that gap. And now, if the person didn't have it, it's usually too late to apply and have it kind of start kicking in now. But if they did have it, where is it through? How is that, paying out? Lots of things to look into. How long was short term? When can you qualify for long-term disability? So on and so forth. A lot to look into here, but just, look into it. Talk to the person, look through financials, all kinds of different things.
Even if you're younger, you never know what can happen. You think you're young, you're healthy. And of course that's awesome, but life has a way of throwing curveballs at you, as we've discussed many times on this show. And you need to be prepared for the unimaginable.
Yeah. So definitely, keep an eye out on those. All right, and next one, what will be the living arrangements? Is someone moving in with someone else? Are they moving in with you? Are you moving in with them? Do you have an extra garage like this one that you could turn into like a little granny flat studio type deal? I looked this GIF up. It was actually super cool. I'll just have to send you the link, Chase. They turned this garage into like this awesome little living thing. But it's a big expense, and it's a big decision. That person may or may not want to move in with you. That individual may be used to having their own independence, and they don't want you to, or they don't want to be, quote unquote, a burden on you. Lots of different things that go into play here. Again, having that plan ahead of time. But the living arrangements, what will they be? Will they change? Maybe this person needs someone to help them throughout the day. Whether it's a medical professional caretaker or just someone to,
or they
can't
can't afford an assisted living.
They can't afford assisted living, or they don't want to, or they want to. There's so much going in there. But what would be the living arrangements?
And what is that ultimately going to cost you? Or do they have the finances to help cover rent or just their food and those kinds of things? There's so many implications that we don't think about.
Right. So definitely want to, keep an eye out for that one. Look for assistance programs. I know it's difficult. I know it's confusing. It's like this guy during this football game who started singing and he got himself lost. You know, there's just a lot. And this is where sometimes you can go find a professional to help you. But look for assistance programs, whether it's public benefits, other government safety nets, Medicare, Social Security, the state programs, Medicaid, Medi-Cal. There's a lot of stuff out there. And there's also organizations that support both the individual in need, the person being cared for,
Right.
and believe it or not, there's caretaker support organizations
Yeah.
where there's like, it's for the caregiver, and they'll provide you with, support, whether it's education, whether it's
Or if you're a veteran, or if
yeah,
you have
lots
a
of different
spouse, or
things.
you're the
I know
spouse of a
when we
veteran.
were at the Military Veterans Resource Centers here in San Diego, we're still part of it. I remember one of the other cubicles was like Southern California Caregivers,
Caregivers,
something or
yeah.
other. And they're great. And
Great organization.
they're specifically there to help the caregiver, both not necessarily in a financial way, but with hooking them up with resources, or and sometimes it can be something really minor that can make a big difference for that
Absolutely.
individual. So there are organizations around, possibly around you, especially if you're in a big city, that may be able to help. And then this kind of goes for everyone, but if you're taking care of someone, watch out for scams. Both people trying to scam you and people trying to scam the person you're caring for. And sometimes there's just, so many, it's a time where, you or that person may be vulnerable because you're out there looking for resources. You've got people calling you back, not calling you back, lots of moving pieces. So watch out for scams. Unfortunately, that's a time, and this is somewhere where scammers can really go after those most in need. And sometimes, like in the GIF, I don't know if you remember the Office episode, but the person who's being scammed has a hard time seeing it. And sometimes they just need a friend to walk up and say, you see what's going on here, right? This isn't right. So maybe that's where you step in, that's really not, please don't wire that money. You haven't won the lottery. Because scams are there, unfortunately, and you just got to be on the lookout all the time for them. Build your team. Who else can help? Is there someone, siblings, other relatives, friends, family, neighbors? Who can you count on to be your support system, your team, to help ease some of that caregiving responsibilities and to help a little bit more evenly distribute it, if at all possible? So who else do you have who you can lean on, who you can have share in those responsibilities? There may be people who are more than willing to help, who wouldn't mind helping you. And the help could be, in some cases when you're have to be a very involved caregiver, the help might be, hey, can you just hang out with them for a little bit so I can just go decompress?
Or it could just be financially. I mean, it can be lots of things, but you need to have and agree on one or two people that are leading the way. You can't, if you have too many people that feel like they're involved because they help financially and they all put in their 10 cents and they all think different things, then that's going to make it very difficult too. So that group, that team needs to create that plan ahead of time.
Yeah. And like I said, it could be financial if the other individuals aren't near you geographically. Right. That might be the only way that they can provide that support. Right. But it is help, and it can ease some of that financial burden. Real important for you caregivers out there, take care of yourself. It's the old analogy, the airplane masks fall down, you got to put yours on first before you go putting everyone else's on. You got to take care of yourself so that you can better care for whoever it is you're caring for. Sometimes I think for a lot of people, they get very focused in, I'm helping, I'm helping, I'm helping.
Yeah.
This is it. And they got to remember to just breathe and have a little bit of time to take care of yourself so that you could be more efficient, so that you could better take care of whoever it is you're caring for.
Yes.
And this is emotional and financial. If you're caring for someone else, don't stop contributing to your 401ks or your retirement plans or your long-term savings, because at some point then you may fall in the situation where you need the care and you don't have the financial means to help. If you're in a situation where you're caring for someone else and you're thinking, man, I wish they had more money put away to help out with their own finances, don't forget to put money away for whoever's going to take care of you.
Right.
Because you don't want them thinking the same thing that you're thinking right now. So you want to break that cycle if you can. And the only way you can do that is if you take care of yourself as well. And then you hear it a lot from us: maintain an open line of communication. Communication is key, across so many different things. Finances are no exception. Open line of communication with your team, with the people that you're assisting, and with those who are helping you. The more open that communication line is, the better it's going to work out for everyone involved.
Yeah.
So keep that open line of communication. Any questions?
Phil, on that note, I mean, it's not a bad idea to take video of people that if you have directives as well as the paper directives, getting video of somebody telling the camera what they want, or I guess a phone, with people that, especially if they're dementia or as they get older, they just kind of forget. You have that video proof there that, look, you gave this directive, and paperwork, they can look at it and that could be a contention because I don't remember signing any of that. But if they see themselves saying something right to a camera, that helps quite a bit. And I've run into more than a few people where that's been a big help.
Yeah. All right, Chase, we got a question from Facebook. Any tips when you're trying to care for your parents, but also need resources to care for your own kids? Well, so here we go. We got with the sandwich generation, and this is your traditional sandwich. If you do check out our swim live that we did with the sandwich generation. Apparently, there's all kinds of different sandwiches. If you to grab a bite to eat and then watch it, otherwise you might get hungry watching it. But I think it's important to come up with a budget. It sounds silly because it's the simplest thing in personal finances, but oftentimes it's the solution or the beginning to the solution of everything else, personal finances. But come up with a budget and itemize things, and make sure that you try and find those small leaks where maybe you're spending money on something that you don't need temporarily, or you don't realize you still have 15 subscriptions to all these streaming services. You only need one. So trying to cut back on other expenses so that you can better allocate funds, but make sure that you're looking for resources. If you're the caretaker, there are resources out there, financial and otherwise, that can help alleviate some of that financial cost of caring for elders. But it can often be a balancing act, unfortunately. So it's a matter of pulling those putting that budget together, and trying to see where that money is going, and try not to stretch too thin.
Yeah, there are different organizations in San Diego. There's organizations like 211, and I believe 211 it can be found nationally as well.
Yeah.
So
regional offices that,
right. So that's important, that you don't get so sucked into just the caregiving that you do forget or don't give all the resources that you can to your own kids, your own children. It's a tough balancing act, as you mentioned before.
Great question, though. Any others? All right. You can always continue learning. We have a podcast called Talk Wealth to Me. We've actually done episodes on elder care, sandwich generation, and being a caregiver. So be sure to check that out right there on our website or wherever you get your other favorite podcasts. Give us a like, give us a listen, and learn more. We've talked to experts on that, and we've had a streak of some important yet difficult smart with your money lives, but we're going to get back to the fun here. It's wedding season and we're joining in on the fun. Wedding saving tips, planning your own big day is up next, and then after that, how to show up to weddings without being the guest at the weddings, and some of the financial hurdles with that as well.
Being in
So
a
we're going
wedding.
to get fun. I'm going to get some good gifts in there and some memes, and we're going to get back to the fun topics here of weddings.
Oh, yeah.
So join us in 2 weeks, same time, same place, for wedding saving tips, planning your big day.
Absolutely. Phil, thank you very much. Like you mentioned, it's not always a fun conversation to have, but it's a conversation that needs to be had.
All right. Thank you, everybody.